When I was 11 and my baby brother Noah was just 2, our parents were renovating our bedrooms in our old house in Fairmont. For a weekend, we had to sleep in the basement, where there was a pull-out couch and a spare crib for Noah. The basement was damp and shadowy, but having Noah there made it feel a little less oppressive. His crying often woke me up, and checking on him somehow eased my nerves. But one night, I jolted awake to Noah's screams, not his usual cries, but blood-curdling shrieks no toddler should make. I ran to his crib, my heart pounding. He was standing up, pointing into the pitch-black boiler room next to his crib. "What is it, Noah?" I whispered, my voice trembling. He just kept pointing, his little face pale with terror. Then I heard it, a faint clatter, like something heavy falling over in the boiler room. The air felt thick, like eyes were watching us from the darkness. I scooped Noah up and ran upstairs, my legs shaking so badly I nearly tripped. I never went back into that basement, and even now, the thought of what Noah saw, what might have been watching us, makes my blood run cold. During a ski trip near Mammoth Lakes, my friends and I rented a sprawling log cabin for a few nights. It was mid-January, and on the third night, a blizzard was raging outside. Around 2 a.m., I got up for a glass of water, crossing the dark cabin to the kitchen. Suddenly, a frantic knock rattled the front door. I froze, my heart pounding. Who would be out in this storm? My car was parked right outside, so they knew someone was here. Part of me wanted to ignore it, but what if someone needed help? I crept to the door and waited. The knocking came again, louder, more desperate. "Who's there?" I called out. No answer. "Who is it?" I shouted louder this time. Still nothing. The knocking stopped, and curiosity got the better of me. I cracked the door open, chain lock still on, and saw no one. Undoing the chain, I stepped onto the porch. Footprints in the snow led away from the door, and against my better judgment, I pulled on my boots and jacket to follow them before the storm erased them. The tracks led to the edge of the property, then stopped dead. No tire marks, no signs of a struggle, just an abrupt end, like whoever made them vanished. A chill ran through me, deeper than the cold. I ran back inside, locking the door behind me. Before I could process it, the knocking started again, frantic and relentless. I screamed for my friends, "Get down here now." They rushed downstairs, and we opened the door together. Nothing. The footprints were already gone, buried by the snow. My friends didn't believe me, and sometimes I wonder if I believe myself. But those tracks and that knocking still echo in my head, unexplained and terrifying. When I was about 12, my family rented a beachfront condo in Sandy Cove for a weekend getaway. It was just me, my mom, my stepdad, and our 2 dogs. The place seemed normal at first, nothing fancy, just a cozy spot at the edge of the shore. We unpacked, went out for dinner, and returned around 8:30 p.m. After watching TV for a bit, my parents and the dogs took the pull-out couch in the living room, while I got the master bedroom with its massive bed. I stayed up late playing offline games on my laptop, knowing there was no Wi-Fi. Around 1 a.m., I decided to call it a night. I'd barely closed my eyes when the room went dead silent. Then, out of nowhere, a loud, guttural sigh broke the stillness, like someone exhaling right beside me. I knew it wasn't my parents or the dogs. The bedroom door was shut tight. My heart pounded as I leapt out of bed and ran to the spare room across the hall, locking the door behind me. I didn't sleep a wink that night, too terrified to even move. The next morning, I told my parents what happened. "It was probably just your imagination," my mom said, brushing it off. But I know what I heard. That sound wasn't in my head, and the memory of it still sends shivers down my spine, like the condo held something I couldn't explain. When I was 14, my bedroom was like a fortress of isolation, tucked away on a separate floor of our house in Pine Hollow, far from my parents' room. With an overactive imagination, I often lay awake at night, paranoid and restless, jumping at every creak. One rainy night, not a storm, just a steady drizzle, I woke up around 2:45 a.m. with a gnawing unease I couldn't place. At the foot of my bed, I noticed a round shadow looming just above the edge. My heart raced until I remembered I sometimes hung my baseball cap on one of the bedposts. Just the cap. Idiot, I muttered to myself, forcing my nerves to settle. I drifted back to sleep, only to wake up again about 20 minutes later. The shadow was still there, and for a split second, panic gripped me until I recalled the cap again. This happened once more, maybe 30 minutes later, the same jolt of fear followed by relief. Thirsty, I reached down to grab my water bottle from the floor beside my bed. My fingers brushed against something else, my cap. Ice flooded my veins. I lunged for the lamp, nearly knocking it over. When the light flicked on, it revealed a man's face peering over the edge of my bed, his eyes locked on mine, unblinking and hollow. I let out a scream that could have shattered glass and bolted past him, feeling his hand graze my arm as I tore out of the room. I sprinted to my parents' bedroom, yelling for my dad. "There's someone in my room," I shouted. He grabbed a metal rod from under his bed and stormed to my room, but the man was gone. The window was wide open, the rain blowing in, and the patio roof outside showed faint scuff marks. The thought of how long he'd been there, watching me sleep, still makes my stomach churn. A friend of mine, Clara, shared a story from when she was around 9, growing up in a quiet suburb outside Ashwood. She'd walk home from school every day, clutching the house key her single mother gave her. Her mom, a nurse, often worked late shifts, so Clara was used to letting herself in. One chilly autumn afternoon, she was fumbling with her key at the front door when it swung open. Her mother stood there in a bathrobe, pale and feverish, having left work early with the flu. But instead of a warm greeting, her mother's eyes locked onto something over Clara's shoulder. "Who's there?" she demanded, her voice sharp with alarm. Clara spun around to see a man in a dark overcoat hurrying down the garden path, his steps quick and deliberate as he disappeared down the street. Her mother's unexpected presence that day might have been the only thing that stopped something unthinkable from happening. The realization hit Clara years later, and the memory of that man's retreating figure still lingers like a ghost in her mind, a reminder of how close danger can come without warning. My friend Sarah and I were headed to a party a few hours away in a small coastal town called Bayview. We decided to crash at her family's vacation cottage, about 45 minutes south of the party. It was late February, and the town was a ghost town. No cars, no neighbors, just empty streets. When we arrived in the afternoon, I struggled with the stiff front gate, so when we left for the party, I debated leaving it open. Not wanting to fumble in the dark later, I locked it tight for security. The party was a blast, and we got back around 1 a.m. My stomach dropped when I saw the gate swinging wide open. I knew I'd locked it, and the wind wasn't strong enough to budge it. Sarah noticed my hesitation. "Did you leave it like that?" she asked. I mumbled something vague, not wanting to scare her. Inside, we decided to make a late-night snack. As I wandered through the house, Sarah suddenly sprinted from the kitchen, tackling me into the hallway. "Someone's outside," she whispered, her voice shaking. We sat there, frozen, listening to footsteps circling the house and the back door rattling like someone was trying to get in. For the next 20 minutes, we huddled in the hallway, too scared to move, with no cell service to call for help. Just as we gathered the courage to grab our things and run to the car, a deafening bang came from the backyard, followed by what sounded like a flock of birds screeching all at once. We bolted to the car, throwing our bags onto our laps as we peeled out of the driveway. In the rearview mirror, I saw a figure sprinting up the side of the house toward us. We drove straight home, not stopping until we were safe. Sleep didn't come that night, and the memory of that figure in the dark still haunts me. I was visiting my friend Lucas in Virginia for a job interview. I'd flown in from Connecticut, and Lucas offered to let me stay at his place, even though it was a 2-hour drive from the company. It was a chance to catch up with an old friend, so I didn't mind. After acing my second interview and landing the job, we celebrated in Lucas's backyard with a bunch of his friends and way too many beers. The night was a blur of laughter and people coming and going. Lucas was the kind of guy who didn't keep tabs on who was in his house. By 3 a.m., most of the crowd had left, and I stumbled upstairs to the bathroom, splashing hot water on my face to sober up. That's when I caught something in the corner of my eye and I staring at me through the crack of the half-open door. "What the hell?" I yelped, slipping on the tile and crashing to the floor. When I scrambled up, the eye was gone. I called out for Lucas, my voice slurring. "Yo, you upstairs?" I shouted. "Nah, I'm in the kitchen," he called back. My stomach dropped. If it wasn't him, who was it? I chalked it up to the alcohol and staggered to the guest room, collapsing onto the bed. Sleep hit me like a freight train, but I woke up hours later, maybe 5 a.m., with a splitting headache. The room was freezing, my foot dangling off the bed, uncovered. Then I felt it. Something ice-cold grabbed my ankle, stroking it slowly. A raspy voice whispered, "Can you help me?" I screamed, lunging out of bed and running into Lucas at the top of the stairs. We called the police, who found a woman in her 50s hiding in a closet. She was an addict who'd slipped into the house during the party, watching me from the bathroom and later creeping into my room. I sleep with my feet tucked tightly under the covers now, and I don't think I'll ever stay at an open-door party house again. Growing up in a tight-knit neighborhood in Crestwood, I had a big group of friends who lived on the same block. On weekend nights, we'd play a game we called Night Hunt, basically hide and seek for older kids. We'd use everyone's front and backyards, even the dense woods behind our houses, though we had a strict rule: no going deeper than a backyard's length into the trees. I had a foolproof hiding spot behind a rusted old barrel half buried in the woods, and no one ever found me there. One summer night, only 5 of us were playing. My buddies Sam and Leo were on my team, and we scattered as soon as the game started. I darted to my usual spot behind the barrel, crouching low in the dark. Normally, I'd see the other team's flashlights sweeping through the yards or hear their voices, but that night, the woods were eerily quiet. Then I heard footsteps, slow, deliberate, crunching through the leaves. No flashlight beam accompanied them, so I assumed it was Sam or Leo. "Sam? Leo," I whispered. The footsteps stopped, then exploded into a full sprint, charging straight toward me. I shot up and ran, crashing through the woods back to my yard, expecting to see someone burst out behind me. But no one did. From the front of the house, I heard my friends calling my name, including Sam and Leo. Confused, I jogged to meet them. They were all gathered with Sam's parents and mine, who looked relieved to see me. "Where were you?" my mom asked, her voice tight. They explained that a police officer had just driven by, warning about a predator spotted in the area. All kids were to stay inside. I told them about the footsteps in the woods, and my parents' faces went white. "You're not making this up, are you?" my dad pressed. I wasn't. The police were called, but I never learned if they caught anyone. The thought of what might have happened if I hadn't run still keeps me up at night. This next story involves a kid named Ethan, whose family life was far from stable. His mother struggled with addiction, and his father, though more grounded, was caught in her chaos. One night in their creaky old house in Redfield, Ethan and his dad were fast asleep when a series of noises jolted them awake, banging, scratching, and dragging sounds coming from his mother's bedroom. His father leapt out of bed and sprinted down the hall, pounding on her locked door. "Open the door, now," he shouted. His mother yanked it open, bleary-eyed and furious. "What's your problem?" "You're waking me up," she snapped. When he asked about the noises, she swore she hadn't heard a thing, claiming she'd been asleep the whole time. Ethan's dad might have chalked it up to her being high again, but something wasn't right. The bedroom window was wide open, letting in the cold night air, and the TV had been dragged across the room, still plugged in, its screen facing the window like someone had been watching the outside. Fear settled in his gut. He slammed the window shut, locked his mother's door from the outside, and made her sleep in the living room. He stayed up most of the night, gripping a baseball bat. At around 4:30 a.m., still dark outside, he woke Ethan and led him to the kitchen, where his mother was already sitting. Moments later, his father's face went pale. He pointed at Ethan and his mother, pressing a finger to his lips. "Shh," he whispered. They fell silent, and then they heard it, shuffling footsteps on the roof, pacing from one end of the house to the other. They sat frozen, listening as the sound stopped after what felt like an eternity. Ethan's dad called his mother's sister, who lived nearby, and asked if they could stay with her for a while. "Of course, I'll come get you," she said over the phone. As Ethan finished his breakfast and moved to the living room to wait, he glanced down the hallway. A door to an unused guest room stood ajar. Wrapped around its edge was a finger, long, unnaturally thick, almost cartoonish, gripping the frame tightly. Ethan screamed, pointing at it. His father grabbed him, and they fled the house, his mother trailing behind. They waited at a nearby gas station until his aunt's SUV pulled up. Ethan later described that finger to me, saying it looked wrong, like it didn't belong to a human hand. They only returned to the house once to gather their things, and even then, they found the guest room window open, though nothing was stolen. They never went back after that. The image of that finger, curled around the door, still haunts Ethan, a detail too strange to forget. When my father was a young boy, something happened that left a shadow on him, though he'd never confess how deeply it shook him. The memory alone sends chills down my spine. He was about 11, alone at home one evening in their old house in Willow Creek. For reasons he never fully explained, his parents were out, leaving him to his own devices. He was sprawled on the living room couch, glued to the only television in the house, an ancient box that flickered more than it worked. Out of nowhere, the screen went black. "Stupid thing," he muttered, dragging himself up to switch it back on. Old TVs were finicky, so he didn't think much of it. He settled back into the couch, but moments later, the screen died again. Annoyed, he got up, flipped the switch, and sat back down. The TV shut off again. This went on a few more times, each blackout fraying his nerves a little more. Frustrated, he started hunting for the remote, thinking maybe it was stuck under a cushion or had a button jammed. As he rummaged around, he stepped behind the couch to check the corner. That's when he froze. Crouched in the shadows was a man, clutching the TV remote. His hair was wild, tangled like he'd been living in the woods, and his eyes gleamed with an unhinged intensity. He flashed a crooked, unsettling smile. My father screamed, his voice cracking like a terrified child, and bolted out the front door. He ran straight to the neighbor's house, pounding on their door until they let him in. "There's someone in my house," he gasped. The neighbors called the police, who arrived to find the man still lurking inside. He was arrested on the spot. My father later said he figured the man was either homeless or out of his mind. But whatever the truth, the thought of a stranger hiding in his home, watching him, still haunts him. It's the kind of story that makes your skin crawl, knowing someone could be that close without you ever suspecting.